Hi all, I'm Abbas Malik, and I'm one of the student with you in this course. I have prepared this presentation as a part of the assignment number one. I will be discussing two different approaches for teaching and learning. If I tried to relate this activity that we are doing right now in the assignment one to these approaches, then it falls under the category of the micro research in the information focused learning approach, because we are as a learners are doing our research and trying to enlighten each other with the different learning approaches about our experiences, what we have learned from this research. So this is one aspect of this particular specific sign number one. Okay, so let's start our presentation. There are various learning approaches that we have are going to study in this course. So we have information focused learning, self-directed learning, authentic learning, and industry work focused learning, peer focused learning. And for this particular assignment number one, I need to focus only on two. So I have chosen information focused learning and independent learning. That is one of the other name for the self-directed learning. Okay, so let's talk about the information focused learning. So focus on and acquiring the knowledge. So in this particular specific learning approach, the focus is more on the information and the knowledge that the students or the learners need to acquire or to focus on. Okay, so let me there are four main uh, methodologies in this one, and the first one is the traditional approach, in which it is a teacher-centered approach in which the teacher is going to deliver the knowledge and the students are on the listening end. And the second one is the flipped learning. In the flipped learning, it is a student-centered approach and also supports interactive learning, in which we are giving some tasks to the student. I will come to the more details in the later slides. The third one is the facilitated discussion, in which the teacher facilitates the discussion among learners to keep it focused and achieve specific goals of the learning session. The final one is the micro research. That is, in the beginning, I have mentioned that this is one of the approach of the information focused learning. The assignment number one that we are doing right now is also a kind of is an example of the micro research. The In the micro research, learners are given specific topics and tasks to prepare and present it to the whole class or a group of the students, so that they can show that what they have learned from this particular specific task that is assigned to them by the instructor. Okay, so we already know about the most of the people, the traditional way of the learning, traditional classroom environment. So I will not be going to discuss in detail of that one, but the other three I will try to give more details about it. So the first one is the flipped learning, flipped class activity with the homework. What does it mean? That we flip the classroom activities with the homework. It means that students can see a pre-recorded lecture or read an article or a book part in their own time, in their own easy environment before they come to the classroom, and they can also search related things and can get prepared for the class. In the class, on the other hand, instead of giving a lecture, we will allow them to discuss and reflect on their understanding about the topics. Additionally, we may provide them with specific tasks or the case studies where they can apply their learning and prove what they have learned. And if there is some correction that is required, then the teacher is there or the fellow students are there. They can correct them if there is some problem in their understanding. So this approach should incorporate flexible environment. Uh, I mean, flexible environment learning culture, and internet intentional contents. It is a more kind of giving some tasks to the students to perform or do some specific activities in the class. And the professional educator. So what does it mean? So flexible learning environment means that the classroom should be flexible to the various needs of the learners. Some want to work alone, individual discussions with the teacher, while the others are more comfortable for a group discussion and learning together. So learning culture, so this is kind of a flexible environment for different type of the students, different requirement of the students. We provide them a flexible environment in the class in which they can adjust themselves and they can learn. The learning culture is a learner centered rather than teacher centered, as it is at it is in the traditional classroom. So teacher provide on we need to provide some specific culture in the class which is more learner oriented, and it will facilitate the learning of the students. Intentional contents, on the other hand, is especially designed of the learning session. I mean, we need some specific skills. We have seen the need some experience so that we can design some specific contents, which maybe it is a case study, maybe it is a um, practical activities or some activities that the students need to do in the class. So that is intentional contents, while keeping that the learning objective of that particular specific session in focus. The teacher prepare that particular intentional content so that when the students are going to do those activities and go through that particular specific content, they can achieve a specific task of our learning session. And the last one, the professional education educator. So that's one of the very major what you can say that requirement. If you look at, we need to provide a flexible environment. We also need to provide a learning culture in the classroom. We also need to provide that intentional contents. And these three requirements require an experienced, well equipped lecturer or the instructor. So we need a very professional educator which can provide these other three contents for the flipped learning, intentional contents and learning culture and the flexible environment. If the educator is not professional, educator is lacking behind, then he or she may not be able to provide these ingredients of the flipped learning. So these are the few points about the flipped learning. So now I will talk about the information focused, that is the facilitated discussion. In the facilitated discussion is among another way to achieve the collective goal or learning outcomes of the course. Again, the main goal is focused on information, knowledge, and skills that students need to learn during the course work. This can be achieved in a variety of ways and methodology like think pair, talk moves, snowboard discussion, affinity mapping. I mean, there are a lot of other way to uh, like engage students into a discussion. There are different methodologies which we can find on that particular specific reference on the at the end. I have given some references, and this one is the third reference. So there will be more details about that one on in that one. So for my more programming, I mean for my personal teaching experience, I am teaching more practical courses which are related to the uh, computer programming, mobile application development, and so on. So I use specifically designed use cases and development tasks, development activities that keep our discussion very focused on a specific aspect of the software and the mobile development. And in this way, I provide my students a specific what you can say that facilitated discussion, a specific intentional content that keep them focused on a specific task to learn a specific aspect of the programming, so that and they can master on that particular specific thing. So this is an and one example of one my lab works which I normally design for different activities. I give them a specific task. So I have provided this particular specific lab work, a complete document file in the submission section. So if you want to see that, then of course you can have a look at all in details about that. And I would love to have some feedback from you. If you have some feedback on that and that will help me to improve it, I will love to hear it. The next topic is the micro research, again in the information focused learning. So in the micro research, students are assigned or they can choose different small topics on which they do research. They learn them in their own times, in their own way, in their own specific ease. They need to present their findings on the topic of their to their fellow students, or maybe a group of the students, or even to the teachers or some other lecturers. This methodology will allow the students to learn on their own and prepare them for self-directed learnings. It also allows them to learn independently and autonomously. This approach helps to build skills like critical thinking, evaluation, and it will also help them to enhance their communication and presentation skills. The last topic, the next learning teaching and learning approach is the independent learning. The independent learning is learner-centered approach and it helps learners to become an independent learner. It also develops skills like critical thinking and self-planning for their learning needs, and learners can learn their strengths and weaknesses and find ways to overcome their weakness and bridge their learning gaps. In this approach, learning is an autonomous and self directed process. Learners are responsible for their learning and they, they perform an active role in their learning experience. They are responsible for their learning. They are more, what you can say, that become confident. And if you look at that in this particular specific independent learning, we have three different approaches. The first one is reflection. In this approach, a learner reflects on their practice, learning experience, and newly learned skills. This approach helps develop critical thinking, self awareness, and self evaluation skills in the learners. This will also help learners to lay the foundation for the further learning so that based on that particular specific learning that they have understand, they can build on that particular learning and they can do for more. And the second approach is the mastery, is another under the category of the independent learning. It means that learners first mastery a newly learned concept and proves their competency and accuracy in the concept. Once they have become the master of one concept, then they move to the next. This approach helps learners to develop deep understanding and the learning. The third one is the self-directed. The, in this approach, either students can select their own topics or research, or or teacher can um, give them a topic to further explore the concepts and develop their deep understanding and learning, or teacher can give them a topic. So for self-directed learning tasks, I always use a case studies, as I have given you an example in the micro research as well. So in the self-directed learning task, what I give them a case study. I give them specific activities and specific tasks that they need to complete by a specific deadline, and then they need to submit via the Moodle. So the such case studies help them build their analytical skills as well as help them to self-criticize their learning and self-evaluate their knowledge and eventually improve their learning in the whole process. Um, so I mean, In this task, normally, for my self-directed learning tasks, I explain them the case study, and then they need to uh, work on that particular specific case study for in their own time, and then they can submit at the end. So to compare these two teaching and learning approaches, information focused learning is more in-class learning guided by the instructor. On the other hand, the independent learning is the learner's own time and environment. It's a learning in their own and time and environment, and it is a self-directed collaborative learning. If we look at that, except in the traditional classroom environment, information focused learning and independent learning, they are both uh, student centered. The learner centered, in which the learners are have more active role to to perform in the learning process. So if we look at that, they are both learner centered, but they also have some differences. And the main difference between them, the information focused learning is the in-class learning. On the other hand, the independent learning is the learning out of the class in the learner's own time and environment. And here are some references which I have used in preparation of this particular specific assignment. I hope you have enjoyed my presentation, and I'm looking forward to hear your feedback on that. Thank you.